Welcome to Antisocial. From December 10, Australian children under 16 will be banned from social media. But most parents, students and teachers are still grappling with how this huge change will impact them. Paul Litherland is a former WA police officer and now works in cyber safety. Paul, thanks for joining us on this episode.
Lovely to speak with you, Rachel.
This is so much more than a new law. It really is a cultural change.
Yeah, for a lot of educators in my space, it's a good opportunity to hopefully try to shift the online environments and hopefully get the networks, especially to start reacting to the harms we're seeing here in this country.
Great. How will it work?
Wow, sadly we're still a little bit up in the air in regards to how they're going to implement the changes from a network perspective. So at this stage a lot of it's going to be reactive, but over time I hope we continue to see initial changes where they're going to hopefully push us to kids under the age of 16 to facial recognition, give them an opportunity to maybe put up ID or information that can prove who they are, but again how they're going to implement that at this stage is still a little bit up in the air.
And I guess what are your main concerns? Is it that we don't really know how this is going to play out?
They have given us, many of the networks have given us a map in regards to how they will try to attempt it, but they're still very guarded in information in regards to what networks they might use, what third-party apps, as in facial recognition, the biometrics, whether they're going to do that themselves or whether they're going to push that out to organisations such as Yoti or My ID and stuff like that.
You briefly touched on it. The methods of age assurance technology. The federal government did a bit of a trial of 3, so they're not going to tell us exactly which ones are going to be used, but can you run us through the 3 options?
In reality, we'll be looking initially is, okay, so on December 11, some kids in Australia will probably wake up and they'll have their account deactivated, whether that's across Snapchat, Instagram or Meta as an example. They'll then need to prove their age or at least give information in regards to the age they believe they're purporting to be. So that could start with probably a facial recognition, which will be them doing a quick photo or video online or just moving the face up and down. The biometrics will be able to determine their age, and then if that is not successful, they're going, okay, I mean, clearly you can identify that child as 12 or 11 or 10 as opposed to 16, 17. They'll go, no, sorry, the account will be closed or deactivated. They might give options to download data. And then if they're not sure, they could push to secondary technology, which could be a selfie video. It could be a photo where you can provide more detailed information in a visual sense. And then after that, if that's even continuing to be unsuccessful, you're probably looking at pushing to formal ID, such as a birth certificate or a passport of such.
But no digital ID, is that right?
No digital ID at this stage, I believe anyway. Some of the platforms may be able to promote or provide in a future sense an opportunity for someone to create a digital ID, but at this stage, as an example, if someone wants to keep their Snapchat account, they're 16 years of age, Snapchat might say, okay, here's a list of third-party applications that you can scan your passport to. Now, it's important we understand that we won't be uploading our passport. It'll just take a video or a capture, maybe the date of birth, and then they'll send that off to Snapchat through the joining instructions or the confirmation instructions and just tell Snapchat whether or not that person failed or was successful in proving their age. So there's a lot of worry around Australia, including myself, in regards to the uploading of personal identification documentation. So I would encourage all of my students, especially here in WA and Australia-wide, is to, if the networks themselves are asking you directly for ID, I'd probably be very hesitant to doing that. My main concern is we've seen many of these organisations, Meta especially, in and out of court a number of times through their mishandling of data. So it's important we really consider the safety options, and I think that the checks our government have done on the third-party applications will work quite well.
Because that's a lot of the feedback I'm hearing from Perth parents is that they're just worried their kid's photo is going to be taken or the kid's information is going to be taken.
Yeah, and that was what I was really concerned about initially, and I am supportive of the legislation because if it can get 30 or 40% of Australian children off social networking and having them no longer exposed to harm, I'm all for it. But I'm concerned about the knock-on effects in regards to our children providing data that their parents might not know about. Kids will try to get around, maybe use an older brother or sister's passport or birth certificate, so that could compromise their safety and privacy as well. So it's a myriad of factors that really need to be taken into consideration.
And I guess only time will tell.
Yeah,
really.
For sure.
Are you confident kids won't find a way around this ban?
They probably will. They'll try, like we all would have done when we were kids, to try to get around things. So how the networks respond to that, I'm hearing lots of talks about VPNs, so a virtual private network. I'll ask a cohort of Year 9s as an example, hands up if you know what a VPN is, and they'll all put their hand up. 10 years ago that was unheard of, Rachel. So yeah, they might do, but the networks are, when it suits them, very, very reactive and very proactive. I apologise, sorry. What I mean by that is if a kid's pretending to be in Texas with an IP address that's been run through a VPN, they'll be able to identify quite clearly that their phone is in Perth or Melbourne.
Yes.
If they're posting every day at school or on buses and trains, they'll know the websites they're going to, they'll know they're underage.
So you don't reckon the VPNs will work for this?
It might work initially, but I think in the long term it'll be able to identify quite quickly that they're trying to get around it.
You spent a lot of your time with WA Police in their Technology Crime Investigation Unit. We're talking about young children exposed to some really nasty stuff. We spoke on the phone a little bit earlier about one case that's stuck with you. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, one of my biggest frustrations at tech crime, and to be honest with you, I had a young son when I first started there, and I believed in the first 12 months at tech crime that I was going to change the internet, that I was going to be able to get these networks to be more responsible, but I learnt pretty quickly that that wasn't the case. So one of the girls I was working with at a school made an error of judgment. She was 16 years of age. She sent an intimate image to her boyfriend. He shared that image with 47 of his peers around the school, and 11 of those peers shared her photo collectively with about 350 people. Now, one person in particular who was known to her created a fake account on Snapchat and sent her own nude and said, "Send me more or this goes to your parents." So from that moment on, that poor young girl was compromised. She felt threatened, so she did send 3 more images before she found that courage to say no, which was great. But my argument was it took me probably 4 to 5 months to have her initial image removed from a website, and it had been downloaded 38,000 times. So when I started getting right into the nitty-gritty of how poorly these organisations are responding, it was very heartbreaking. And now, 8 years later, we still regularly chat, and we're still finding her image online, her images online, so being shared across platforms, social media.
Wow.
It's such a frustrating world. So that level of harm we don't really ever see, and sadly she was blamed by the boy's father who shared her image. Oh, she shouldn't have sent it in the first place. So a lot of our kids are being failed by social media especially.
And they're too scared to go to their parents.
100%. And that level of abandonment is why, from my own perspective, why I do support the legislation. I do support just getting kids to sort of pull away from these environments that don't care for them.
But do you think we'll see a decrease in these crimes from it?
I'm concerned we won't. What I'm worried about is as much as Snapchat, TikTok and Instagram are frustrating apps, they do still have TikTok and Snapchat have quite robust privacy settings. They do have some good control settings for juveniles to minimise their risk and exposure. What I'm concerned about is a number of teens will be kicked off networks and then they'll go to third-party networks or apps that don't have those same level of protection or assistance. So I think initially we're probably going to see a spike in online harm and exposure to risk. So I just hope we can continue to mitigate that with good education.
Yeah, what about bullying?
Bullying, I think, will continue to increase because we're not going to see those mechanisms in place to identify threatening behaviours, keywords that might get flagged from some of the networks and applications. More importantly, a lot of the third-party apps children might push to might be international, that don't have specific rules for reporting or governance of their environments. So again, it's like there's an app called Telegram, which is quite risky. It's an anonymiser app.
Yeah,
so,
Telegram. Now that's quite underground, and
100%.
That's maybe what we can see kids here turn to.
So you won't have those, and as much as I do get frustrated because a lot of the networks currently aren't listening to kids when they report, these third-party and secondary apps, that's even less, so it's quite concerning.
Do you think 16 is an appropriate age?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I remember when my kid was going through school, there were some kids I'd go, yeah, that child could handle a phone or social media. Others I'd go, no, no, no. So it comes down to so much often it comes down to time, place, circumstance. And what I say a lot at my parent sessions in particular is you know your kid more than anyone else. So there are some amazing children in this country doing awesome stuff on social networking, and they're using responsibly. And I think to a degree, as much as I support where we're going with making the networks accountable, I think a lot of those kids have sort of been forgotten in this. But having said that, again, there's a lot of kids out there who are being exposed to risk, who can't handle it and are feeling abandoned.
You spend a lot of time in the classrooms talking to kids. What have their views been about this ban?
It has been interesting and actually exciting from my perspective. It depends on where you go or who you talk to, but I'll ask the question, be honest, you're amongst peers, hands up if you agree with the ban or the delay, and you'll have 30% of hands go up. Hands up if you disagree, you'll probably have 50% of hands go up, and hands up if you're not sure yet. There's a lot of that as well. So I think as much as our kids are frustrated and they're concerned, again, that adults are making the decisions for them, I think there's a good key component of juveniles in Australia who, even though they might not be ready for the change, I think deep down they're going, this actually might turn out to be a positive, even though it might be initially pretty difficult to deal with. So there's an undercurrent there which I am excited about.
Yeah, okay. Now before we go, you just mentioned something to me that I have to bring up. A few weeks ago, someone created a Snapchat account under your name.
Yep.
I think this just shows how scary this world is that we're living in. Can you tell us that one?
And this is where I have so much empathy for my kids, and I speak to over 500,000 Australian children, and I recently had an account created in my name which is being used to groom Australian children, a number of girls across my all-girls schools here in WA, and that shocked me. It worried me, and it was of grave concern, not only from the fact that this account had been created, but from a reputational sense. It could have caused severe damage. But my point there, and what I continue to emphasise to my kids so often across the country, is I reported that account 150 times myself personally, and overall the account was reported probably 300 times by family and peers. But I kept getting back it doesn't go against our community guidelines, doesn't go against our community guidelines. So when these things happen to me, and sadly they do happen regularly, I really have empathy for the kids I speak to because they're abandoned. And we spoke jokingly, you can walk into a convenience store or you can walk into a Bunnings and say, look, here's a sander, it's not working. You'll speak to a human. Someone will address your concerns. Online, we're not doing that. So out of the frustration I have that the ban has come into play, I'll still support it. But most of the kids who speak to me, it's not the fact that they're on the network, it's the fact that when they ask for help, that they're abandoned, and that is the ramifications, and I see all the time, and it's very, very concerning for Australian children to go through that.
Of course, really, really is. Paul Litherland, we really appreciate your time today and your insight into this really complex topic. Only time will tell.
Thanks, Rachel. It's going to be very interesting next 12 months, so hopefully we'll go all right.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Antisocial. We'll see you next time.